Hello, today we're talking about 8.3 solving proportions and what better to do when it's so cold outside than a little math. All right, today we're talking about proportions, and before we get started solving proportions, we need to know what a proportion is. So if we look right here, it tells us that a proportion is just an equation. Remember, an equation has an equal sign that shows that two ratios are equivalent. So the proportion below shows that the ratios of the pictures are equivalent. If we look right here, we have a ratio of 2 of 3 rows. So if we can look at, whoops, that one right there, 2 out of the 3 rows are circled. And here, 8 of 12 dots are circled. We've got 8 of the dots out of the 12 are circled. So they're telling us 2 out of 3 is equal to 8 out of 12. So a proportion is an equation that shows that two ratios are equal. So let's keep moving. We can figure out if a proportion is truly a proportion by using cross products. And some of you have heard about this earlier and you've been trying to apply it in other situations, and it hasn't been applicable until now. Well, here this is telling us that the cross products of a proportion have to be equal if it is in fact a proportion. So you can take the kitty corner ones and the other kitty corner ones, and if they equal the same thing, then they are in fact a proportion. So let's check it out. Here we would take 5 times 12. We know that 5 times 12 equals 60. And what happens when we take 3 times 18? Well, I don't know, but whoops, that's supposed to be an 18 times 3. When I do that, 3 times 8 is 24. 3 times 1 is 3 plus 2 is 54. So 3 times 18 is 54. So would this be a proportion? No, it is not a proportion. They are not equal. 60 is not equal to 54. Let's try this one out. What happens when we take 10 times 20? 10 times 20 equals 200. Hopefully you realize that. And 8 times 25, I always think of 25 in quarters. So how much do I have if I have 8 quarters? I have $2. So 8 times 25 is 200. 200 is equal to 200. This one is in fact a proportion. Good job. So that's just to help us decide if it is in fact a proportion or not. So here it just goes to show us here the cross products were not equal. 54 was not equal to 60. On the second one we did 200 was equal to 200, so it was in fact a proportion. So what about solving proportions? Sometimes we have a missing number in here, and to solve a proportion you need to find the value of any missing part, and it doesn't matter if the x is down here or up here or here or here. Any of the 4 spots, if 1 out of the 4 is missing, we can solve it. And one way to do that is by using mental math. And this is what we've been using for an awful long time so far. We would ask ourselves, 4 times what equals 20? How do we get from 4 to 20? Well, we would take it times 5, right? 4 times 5 equals 20. Whatever you do to the top, you have to do to the bottom. So 12 times 5 then would get us what x is. So x would be equal to 60. All right, so 4/12 is equal to 20 over 60. So we can always do this method if it works out, if the numbers work out. So let's just quickly practice here. Does this in fact equal a proportion? How are we going to figure this out for numbers 1 and 2? We're just answering yes or no. Does it form a proportion or not? That's right, we need to do cross products. So we need to take 8 times 12. So when we take 12 times 8, what do we get? 8 times 2 is 16. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 1 is 9, so we get 96. Is that equal to 3 times 32? Well, 32 times 3 would give us 96. So it is in fact equal. This one is a yes. We'll give it a star. Over here, we've got 6 times 25. So if I have 6 quarters, that means I have $1.50. And what happens when we take 36 times 5? Let's see what happens there. So I'm doing this kitty corner. This one I already did to equal 150. This one is going to equal 6 times 5 is 30. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 3 is 180. So is 180 equal to 150? No. So we put a slash through our equal sign. It is not. This is not a proportion. This one is. They are equal. This one isn't. They aren't. So remember, we're taking the cross and figuring out what that is, and it should equal what the other one does. If it doesn't, it's not a proportion. Now let's just do two of these solving mental math. 4 times what gave us 24? That should have been times 6. So what number times 6 equals 6? N should equal 1. 1 times 6 equals 6, right? Over here, how do we get from 25 to 5? 25 divided by what equals 5? If your division skills aren't that great, go the other way. How do you get from 5 to 25? 5 times 5 equals 25. So what number times 5 equals 10? K would equal 2. We're going to keep moving on to keep things rolling. So what about when we can't use mental math? Like, for example, how do I get from 6 to 8? We're not adding. I don't know how to multiply or divide to get from 6 to 8. So we need to have a backup way in order to solve this proportion, because sometimes it works out that we can use mental math and sometimes it can't. So what we need to do here when we can't do it mentally. So for example, I don't know how to take 6 times anything to equal 8. So when I do this, no matter where my missing number is, I'm going to find the 2 that are kitty corner. So I'm going to take 6 and 44, and I'm going to multiply them. So 44 times 6, and I get 6 times 4 is 24. 6 times 4 is 24, plus 2 is 26. So I get 264. So my first step is to multiply whatever is diagonal. And then what I need to do is take this answer here and divide it by whatever number is left out. We have not used this 8 yet. So I'm going to take 264 and I'm going to divide it by 8. So 8 can go into 26 3 times. 8 times 3 is 24. 26 minus 24 is 2. I'm going to bring down this 4. Oh, this worked out nicely. 8 times 3 gets me to 24 exactly. 24 minus 24 is 0. So 33 is my answer. Therefore, y equals 33. So once again, our steps, the first thing we need to do is find 2 numbers kitty corner to each other, because there's always going to be one missing. That's what we're solving for. So no matter where it is here, find the 2 numbers that are kitty corner, multiply them, get your answer, and then divide it by whatever number you haven't used yet. Good job. So let's try it again. What 2 numbers am I going to multiply in this one? I need to find the 2 that are kitty corner or diagonal. In this situation, I'm missing this top number here. So I'm going to be looking right here. I'm going to take 63 times 4. 63 times 4. 4 times 3 is 12. 4 times 6 is 24, plus 1 is 25. So I got 252 here. And now my last step is to take and divide my answer by 28. So 252 divided by 28. And guess what? We are going to be starting to use calculators. You can use your calculator, but I still need to see you write out your answers. So I want to see that you're taking 63 times 4 and that you got 252, and then I want to see that you're taking 252 divided by 28. And from there, that's it. You don't need to do all the rest of it. You would find out that the answer is a 9, so therefore x equals 9. So if this were on your homework, this is what I want to see. This is exactly what I want to see. So when you do your homework, I want to see it exactly like this. The first thing we want to do is I want to see you circle the 2 numbers you're going to multiply. So these are the only 2 that are diagonal. So I'm going to take 81 times 2, and I'm going to get, you can use your calculator and just write out that the answer would be 162. Then I want to see you take 162 and divide it by this last one that we haven't used. So 162 divided by 18 And when we do that, you should get on your calculator a beautiful answer of 9. And so then last but not least, just tell me that n equals 9 and put a box or a circle around it. This is what you need to show with your answer. I do not want to see just n equals 9. I need to know what you're putting in your calculator so that we can figure out what's going wrong if you're not getting the right answer. All right, you're going to start having a little bit of word problems here, and I know they freak you out, but it's okay. What you really need to remember is that when setting up proportions from word problems, make sure that your labels say consistent. So for example here, our problem is for every 2 popcorns that are sold at the movie theater, there are 3 pops that are sold. So that's just the ratio that for every 2 popcorns, they tend to sell 3 pops. So how many popcorns have been sold if there are 243 pops sold? So we need to set it up. We know a proportion is 2 ratios set equal to each other. My first ratio is for every 2 popcorns, and I'm just going to put a PC, there are 3 pops. Okay, this is a ratio, 2 popcorns to 3 pops. So now, where's my x going to go? What am I looking to solve? How many popcorns have been sold if there were 243 pops? So my x is going to be up here because I'm looking for popcorn. I know that there are 243 pops sold. So pops were on the bottom. Pops need to stay on the bottom. So that's how I know my proportion is set up right. I've got pops and pops, popcorn up here, and I'm looking for popcorn up here. So now I'm going to take 243 times 2, because I'm going to multiply, and let me change my color. I'm going to multiply the diagonal, 243 times 2, and when I plug that into my calculator or do it in my head, I get 486. And now I'm going to take 486 and divide it by 3. So when I divide it by 3, I get a grand total of 162. That means that x is equal to 162 popcorns that are sold on that day. All right, you're doing great. I have 2 more for you to do on your own. I want you to show me how you would solve this and how you would solve this. Make sure to show your work like I said, and if you have a calculator, you can use it. If you don't have a calculator, you have all the skills to do this without a calculator, so there shouldn't be any excuses for why this isn't done. I'll check it in class tomorrow. Have a great day, and if I don't see you before, have a great break